In this video, I'm going to explain why pagan Christianity tells you to honor abusive parents. And I'm also going to explain why the world, as well as pagan Christianity, well, there are some people in the world who differ from this, but in general, the world, which includes pagan Christianity, also tells you to honor an abusive spouse, unless it's way too obvious that you're being mistreated. But let's begin with why the world tells you to honor abusive parents, when it's obvious that those people are monsters. Now, not all human beings had abusive parents, so some may not be able to relate to this subject. Many, however, experience some type of toxicity from their parents, at least, which is to expect because this is the world, which is in a fallen state. And there are also others who don't realize yet that they were treated in a bad way that shouldn't have happened. For those who see the truth for what it is, and they take actions for their own safety, as grown men and grown women, they get the accusation, but he's your mother, he's your father, they remain your parents. They are blackmailed by society to put up with the violence of the perpetrator, in this case the parents. Why is that? Why is it that you expect children, or even grown people, to put up with predation by their own parents? What is this? Let me tell you why. That parent also came out of a vagina, right? He or she was also born on the earth. So they didn't fall from the sky, nor were they invented in some laboratory. So they were human beings that were born as babies, and they also grew up. How did they become predators? They didn't choose their own first name. They didn't choose their native language. They didn't even choose their own gender, how they were born. They didn't choose their skin color. So what they've become is the result of the community they grew up in. So if someone becomes a predator, they can only remain a predator as long as the community enables them. Because either the community resists them and forces them to look for help, and they will forsake their old ways, or they will flee from that community and they will look for some cult where they can act out their violence. No healthy community can contain predators. The reason you have someone that's a predator, even having children, shows you that the community has failed. And now the community needs to admit their failure and deal with the failure. But do worldly people want to do this? No. They want to flee from stuff. They want to avoid things. Especially when things have gotten way out of hand. That is why you have this unspoken rule in the world that you put up with whatever BS your parents come up with. And you are blackmailed by society to put up with violence by your parents. Why? Because if you recognize that your parents are out of line, then you also need to recognize that the community you grew up in or the community around your parents is also out of line. And that means that people have something to explain to you. That means people have something to give an account for. And this is quite shocking and embarrassing. People don't want to do this. So they don't want you to recognize when one of your parents is out of line. That's a taboo. You're expected to allow your parents to violate you, no matter how old you are. And they come with excuses, well, she gave birth to you, or you come out of his semen, so it's because of their activity you're on the earth, so they have a right to violate you. Such arguments are used. And I'm thinking, what? Are you kidding me? They're not the Most High. And even the Most High doesn't go around violating his creatures to prove who he is. So who are they, with mortal bodies, who need Christ to be resurrected soon? Who are they that they can go around violating others? What is that? Yet, in the world, You're allowed to violate your own children as long as you don't bother the community too much with your violation. As long as you do it in quote-unquote private and people are left alone from your violent urges, they are okay with it. That's the common rule in the world. Now, there are places in the world where people say, no, we don't take this. Even if it's in your own house where you pay rent, if you abuse a child, we call the cops on you. There are places where they do this. But that's quite recent. That's a recent development. A very recent one. Throughout human history, it was the norm. You have a right to violate your own children. Nobody interferes because it's so-called your business. What happens in your house stays in your house. That thinking is diabolic. It's demonic. That is, how should I say it? That's institutionalized cowardice. And the same applies to society telling you that you shouldn't put up with violence by your partner. Why? Just think about it, just like with parents. If you have a grown man or a grown woman that's out of line, the community needs to deal with them. But if they have a partner, a sex partner they are attached to, then it's likely the sex partner that will put up with the violence and with the negativity. That means the rest of the community is at ease. That's why spouses and children are expected to put up with the violence and the danger caused by their reprobate partners or parents. It has nothing to do with faith. It has nothing to do with character. It all has to do with the world not wanting to deal with difficulty amongst them. So think about this. If you are in a community where people expect you to allow others to violate you so that the community so they are at ease, and you're not even allowed to ask the question, well, what about me? If you're not allowed to ask the question, what about me? Not out of selfishness, not out of narcissistic tendencies, but just that you ask, what about me, out of safety concerns. If you're not even allowed to ask, what about me, out of safety concerns, then you shouldn't even want to be part of such a community. You shouldn't. Yet, this is what worldly people do. Worldly people put up with the blackmail of society in the hope that they will be accepted. But sooner or later they'll figure out that the blackmail is never going to stop, and now, to relieve themselves, they will blackmail others that are weaker than them. And that's how the cycle goes on from generation to generation, century after century. As a believer, you ought to see through this scam and step out of it. Because if you don't step out of it, you're a part of it and you're enabling it. Even if you were the victim, the moment you realize that you are victimized, you ought to go for help and get out of the cycle. If you linger in the cycle, even if you did not initiate it, you're now enabling the cycle by being an available target. By keeping yourself as an available target, you are enabling the demonic cycle. So you must be free from it. Just realize the following. Anytime you forfeit any demonic pattern, worldly people will be upset with you. Because you not enabling a demonic pattern means that they now need to be responsible towards you. They need to be responsible towards others. They don't want this. They just want relief. And you are expected to be an available target so that whenever they need relief, you're there to dump upon. You're only protected as long as you benefit them. That is the world. Now, is this the type of world you want to be part of? For real?